It's a beautiful spring morning. I'm on the banks of Shoal Creek in Newton County, Missouri. Hi, I'm Jim Viebrock. I've spent the last 30 years out photographing, documenting, and now videoing old water mills. This is Ritchey Mill. Let's take a look around. There's not a lot of information about Ritchey Mill out on the internet. What I do know is the building I'm standing in front of is not the original building. The original building ran off of a turbine. We'll talk more about that in a minute. This version runs off of an old diesel engine that I don't think is operational at this point. We'll look at that in a minute as well. The millwright is the person that owns the mill, and let's talk about how that person would have made a living. The farmer would bring their crops to town, and that's going to be either corn or wheat. In this case, let's talk about corn. The farmer would bring the corn in on a wagon usually, and it would be still on the cob. It would be dry, so it's going to be pretty late in the year. The millwright then would offload that into the mill and run it through a machine called a sheller. The corn sheller is a unique piece of equipment. I really kind of like them. A mill of this size would have had one operating off the belt pulley on the inside. My favorite is the hand crank type, and I have several of them in my personal collection. So what they would do is get the kernels off of the cob, and then they would weigh those kernels. And this would be the starting point of how they would process this whole thing. If they were going to mill it down into feed corn, then they would run it through a time or two and get it crushed so that the livestock could eat it easily. In some cases, the farmer would just pay for this service and go on their way. In other services, the millwright might exchange the labor in exchange for some of the crop. This worked out very well because the millwright would then have grits and feed corn that they could sell to the town folk that weren't farmers. So this arrangement worked very well. Now, once the kernels are off of the cob and they've been shelled, then we would need to grind them down. And there were two types of primary ways of doing this. In the early mills, the 1700s and 1800s, they used what they call a stone mill. This was two large round stones that are flat. They have grooves in them that move opposing to each other, and they would pulverize the corn or the wheat down to whatever consistency they want. There's not a stone mill on this property to show you. However, there are two roller mills on here, and those are more modern ways of grinding corn. There are two steel drums rolling against each other that are inside this mill, and I have pictures of them from the last time I was here. So that is the way that they would have pulverized the material down to where it was usable, either to corn grits or feed corn, something along those lines. And they would run them through some sifters and some different plates to separate the materials out to get them that way. Now, this mill originally ran off of a turbine. Let's go take a look at it. Okay, this is the turbine that is on the property. This is a big one too, by the way. I think these are really cool. These were the preferred method of operating the mills over time. As technology changed, they moved to these in the mid to late 1800s. The reason being is you could get more horsepower out of these, and they were way more efficient use of the water. They worked through static water pressure. So you would have this in a room or a shaft below the mill or very close to the mill, and there would be water above it. And it uses the static water pressure, the weight of the water, to operate. You will open these fins, and inside here is an impeller. The wider you open the fins, the faster the turbine is going to turn. The deeper the water is above it, the more horsepower it's going to have. The water then discharges out the bottom and goes on downstream. As the impeller turns, it'll turn this shaft that goes up into the mill, and then through a pulley system will operate the equipment in the mill. Now, what I think is really cool about this 1800s technology is that the computer you're watching, or the TV you're watching right now, is partially being powered by a hydroelectric dam. The hydroelectric dam has turbines in it very similar to this. So I think it's fascinating that 1800s technology is powering your home today. Let's talk about the wheel here for just a second. This is a new addition to this property since the last time I was here. It appears they're going to set it up in an overshot configuration, which I like to see. There will be a trough or a sluice above it that'll come just past top dead center. The water will come out of it. It'll fill up these troughs right here, and gravity will cause the wheel to turn. And the inertia will keep it turning very easily. Now, it's important that these wheels are balanced perfectly, because if they're not, they will lob as they turn, and that'll create slack in the belts and it'll cause trouble inside the mill. So balance is very important with this. Now, they could set this up as an undershot wheel and have the water come under the wheel, and it would make it turn what appears to be backwards. It doesn't appear they have the troughs set up to do it that way, so I think they're going to go overshot. Now, another way that they could have done this with a wheel this size is what they call a pitchback, and that means that the trough or the sluice would have not come quite to top dead center. The water would cascade out and go to the back side of the wheel, causing it to return in a reverse motion. Really cool. I'm glad to see this here. This is a nice steel wheel they're putting together, and it's a great addition to this site. I wanted to stop and show you this for just a second. This is the shaft coming out of the diesel engine into the mill. This would have been the powerhouse for the mill itself. This, I believe, is a clutch. They would have used this lever to engage and disengage this shaft. Now, this is a pulley here that would have been very useful for other things outside of the mill. For example, they could have ran this belt pulley out there and operated a buzz saw to cut firewood or some kind of homemade log splitter, something like that. This could have been used to run things exterior of the mill. So this is really cool that this is here. Let's talk about the importance these mills played during the Civil War. I'm in the central part of the United States. Specifically, I'm in southern Missouri. Sometimes I'm in northern Arkansas when I talk about this. There were a lot of skirmishes in the Civil War between the North and the South in this band right through here. As a matter of fact, I'm about 40 miles west of the Wilsons Creek National Battlefield. I'm also about 30 miles east of a location where the Southern Confederate legislature signed a document to secede from the Union. Now, that document was later deemed not void because they didn't have a quorum when they cast the vote. But we're in a very historically significant part of the country for the Civil War. As these skirmishes went back and forth, the North and the South didn't want assets to fall into the other hands. So when they would retreat from an area like this, oftentimes they would burn the mill to keep the other side from getting it. So for a mill to have survived the Civil War in this belt is really a big deal. I mentioned that the mills were the lifeblood of a community. The small town of Ritchey, Missouri is no different from that. When the mill was in operation, this town was flourishing. It was growing and doing well. When the mill ceased operations, then the town starts to dry up. Although there are still some permanent residents here, the town really has been stagnant since the mill quit producing. And when the mill's doing great, then the town does great. When the mill falters, so does the town. Thank you for spending time at Ritchey Mill with me here in Newton County. If you've stayed with me this long, I've got a bonus for you. I mentioned earlier the Wilsons Creek National Battlefield being about 40 miles from here. Just south of that is a mill ruin site that is very important historically. I want to show it to you. Let's go look. Welcome to Christian County, Missouri. I'm just south of the city of Battlefield by about 2 miles, and I'm just southeast of the Wilsons Creek National Battlefield. I'm on the James River. This site at least ought to have, in my opinion, a historical marker. There was a lot of things that happened on this site associated with the Griffin-Nelson Mill that used to sit here. Now, the Griffin family and the Nelson family owned this mill back and forth for the several decades that it was in existence. Ultimately, in the end, it was owned by the Nelson family. Now, this mill was plagued with lawsuits, and not from people accusing them of wrongdoing, but from a single bureaucrat. The interesting thing about that bureaucrat is the way they took matters into his own hands in the end. I'll get to that in just a minute. But one of the things that I think needs to be mentioned about this site is the fact that the two-story house that was on this site, that adjacent to the mill, was a very historical place. I'm right on the line between the North and the South and the Civil War. This boundary line moved back and forth as the skirmishes took place here. Obviously, this was a hotbed of activity because the Wilsons Creek National Battlefield is right down the road from here. The two-story house that sat next to the mill here operated as a hospital for both the North and the South separately. As they jockeyed the lines through here, through these different skirmishes, at one point it was occupied by the North, and at another time it was occupied by the South, and they both used it for a hospital. I think that is significant. Now, what makes this place really unique as far as a mill is the lawsuits that were happening here. A bureaucrat whose name is lost to history, that worked for the modern day equivalent of the Department of Natural Resources, had a beef with this mill and filed at least 10 lawsuits that I could find over the mill dam. The accusation was that the fish in this river couldn't pass upstream from the dam, and the bureaucrat insisted that the dam be removed to unobstruct the migratory patterns of the fish. Now, in 2022, that doesn't sound like something all of that out of the ordinary. But back in the 1800s, this was unprecedented. Every time that I found the lawsuits and the court records that went with it, the judge sided with the mill, saying that the mill had the right to operate the dam and keep the dam. With every time this happened, the bureaucrat would get madder and madder and madder. Ultimately, what happened to this site was, after a very successful milling year, the Nelson family decided to go to St. Louis to visit some relatives. While they were gone, the bureaucrat took matters into his own hands and blew up the dam with dynamite. That was the end of the Griffin-Nelson Mill. Now, when I was here originally trying to find this location, about 30 years ago, I actually found an artifact from this mill that I kept for a long time. I ultimately have now donated it to a museum where it belongs. This is a really unique site. I think it should have at least a historical marker here. I'm Jim Viebrock. I hope you've enjoyed the tour of Ritchey Mill in Newton County and this unique site in Christian County. Let's go find another mill to explore.